On August 20th, 1966, a young boy flying a kite on a hillside outside Niterói, Brazil, found two men lying side by side in the tall grass, wearing suits and ties, as if they had dressed for a formal occasion. Over their eyes, each man wore a crude mask made of lead. Nobody knew how they died. There were no wounds, no signs of a struggle, no poison found in their bodies. Just two men in suits, on a hill, wearing lead masks, staring up at a sky they would never see again. And next to them, a small notebook with a set of instructions that read like a countdown to something that was never supposed to be found. Their names were Manoel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viana. Both were electronic technicians from the city of Campos dos Goytacazes, about 150 miles north of where their bodies were found. On August 17th, 3 days before they were discovered, they told their families they were going to São Paulo to buy supplies for their work. They never made it to São Paulo. Instead, they traveled to Niterói, a coastal city across the bay from Rio de Janeiro. They stopped at a local shop and bought a bottle of water and 2 raincoats. Then they climbed Morro do Vintem Hill, a steep and overgrown slope on the outskirts of town. And that is where their story, at least the part anyone can verify, comes to an end. You're watching Mind Blown, where we uncover the stories that defy explanation. Here is where things get strange, and they were already strange. When investigators searched the area around the two men, they found that notebook. Inside, written in one of the men's handwriting, was a sequence of instructions. Translated, it read something close to this. 16:30, be at the agreed place. 18:30, swallow capsules. After the effect, protect metals. Wait for mask signal. Read that again. Swallow capsules. Protect metals. Wait for mask signal. These were not random scribbles. This was a plan, a set of timed steps leading to a moment when something, or someone, was supposed to arrive. The lead masks were not decorative. They were functional. Manoel and Miguel had made them by hand, cutting and shaping crude lead shields designed to cover their eyes.
Whatever they expected to see on that hilltop, they believed it would be bright enough or dangerous enough that they needed to shield themselves from it.
And the capsules? Investigators never determined what was in them. The autopsies were delayed because the local coroner's office was overwhelmed, and by the time toxicology was attempted, the organs had decomposed too far to give a reliable result. So the most basic question, what killed these two men, has never been answered. There were no gunshot wounds, no stab marks, no broken bones. Nothing external to explain why two healthy men in their 30s were lying dead on a hillside. But Vintem Hill had a reputation.
In the months before Manoel and Miguel were found, locals reported seeing strange lights hovering above the area.
One witness, a woman who lived near the base of the hill, said she saw a glowing oval-shaped object descend toward the hilltop on the very evening the two men were believed to have gone up. She did not think much of it at the time. It was only after the bodies were found that her account took on a different weight. The boy who discovered them also mentioned seeing unusual lights in the sky that week, though his account was not formally recorded until later.
Friends and family of the two men revealed something else.
Manoel and Miguel had been experimenting with what they called spiritual electronics. They attended meetings of a local group interested in contacting what they described as extraterrestrial intelligences. They believed it was possible to make contact using a combination of homemade devices, meditation, and specific chemicals. The capsules mentioned in the notebook may have been part of this ritual, something they believed would open a channel of perception. Whether they were hallucinogens, sedatives, or something else entirely, no one knows. The contents were never identified.
This was not their first trip to a hilltop.
According to people who knew them, they had attempted similar experiments before, going to elevated, isolated locations with their equipment and their masks, waiting for a signal. Previous attempts had apparently ended without incident. They would go up, wait, and come back down. This time, they did not come back. One detail that investigators could never explain was the condition of the bodies. Despite lying in an open field for 3 days in the Brazilian summer, the bodies showed less decomposition than expected. Some researchers later suggested this could have been due to environmental conditions or the type of clothing they wore. Others pointed to it as evidence that something unusual had occurred on that hill, though that line of reasoning leads quickly into speculation. The case was officially closed without a conclusion. The Niterói police classified it as unsolved. No murder charges were ever filed because there was no evidence of murder.
No suicide ruling was made because there was no definitive cause of death.
The lead masks, the notebook, the capsules, the lights in the sky, all of it was filed away and left to gather dust. What makes this case linger is not one single detail. It is the way every piece fits together into a picture that almost makes sense, but never quite does. Two men with technical knowledge built protective equipment for their eyes. They followed a timed set of instructions. They ingested something. They waited for a signal. And then they died, with no visible cause, on a hill where people reported seeing lights in the sky. Each fact on its own could be explained away. Together, they resist every easy answer. I think what happened on Vintem Hill was a ritual that went fatally wrong. Two men who genuinely believed they were on the edge of contact with something beyond ordinary experience followed a protocol they trusted, took substances they did not fully understand, and paid for it with their lives. The lead masks were not protection from aliens.
The tragedy is not that something came for them. The tragedy is that nothing came, and whatever they swallowed killed them while they waited for a signal that was never going to arrive.
Nearly 60 years later, nobody has produced a toxicology report, a credible witness to their final moments, or a definitive explanation. Vintem Hill is quiet now. The grass has grown back over the spot where they were found. But the notebook still exists, and those instructions still read like a countdown to a moment that no one alive can describe. Two men climbed a hill, put on masks, and waited for something from the sky. What do you think they were waiting for? Drop your answer in the comments. Subscribe to Mind Blown for more stories that will blow your mind.